Morning, guys. I hope you're well. Sorry, we're just a couple of minutes late there. We will get cracking because there's plenty on the line. As per usual, jump in the chat section. Let me know if you've got a question for Andrew, and we'll get going. Andrew McGlashan, do you want to kick us off?
Thanks, Lucy. Hi, Andrew. I know it's been a few days since the first couple of games of this series. Have you guys had a chance to look back and reflect, and kind of have you worked out where you might have been a bit short in those first two games?
Yeah, I mean, time between games gives you a bit of time to review and obviously build into the next game. We gave the guys a couple of days off. It was opportunistic to be able to do that, give them a bit of a refresh, and yeah, we're building into the next game. But like anything, there's always plenty of positives within those. We saw Daniel Sams show what he could do with the bat, lower down the order. I thought Marcus Stoinis, batting at 5 with the power that he had there, in particular his play against spin was a huge positive. Jai Richardson's returned to international cricket. So there's been some significant sort of leaps forward. Clearly, we didn't win either of those games. The first game, we were a bit sloppy. There's no doubt about that. And I think I've been on the record in saying that we were a bit sloppy in that first game. But the second game, a significant improvement to the point where we got ourselves into a position where we needed 36 off 18 deliveries on a small ground and a good wicket, that we feel as though we probably let that one slide. So that was sort of a reflection there. There's a few key areas, probably through the middle overs, where New Zealand are playing fantastic cricket, sort of between that 7 to 16 over mark. Quite aggressive with the bat, so we've got a few things to work through there. And yeah, we feel as though we're well placed coming in these back 3 games with the information that we've got. And we might make a couple of changes in this game. We'll have a look at the surface tonight, and see where we go from there.
Have you actually been able to get to the Sky Stadium? Yeah, I know you guys train at the base, and have you actually had a look at the ground itself? Will you be playing?
No, not yet. That's what we're going to do tonight. So we'll get a look at it tonight. We're training at the basin again. I think from 2 till 5 we train, and then we'll head down to the ground, just have a little look there. Myself, Aaron Finch, and George Bailey, and we'll make some decisions on what that team looks like and communicate that tonight.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. Sam Ferris.
Andrew, just away from the T20 series for a second, but is it going to be weird actively supporting England in their final Test match against India, trying to get Australia through that World Test Championship final?
Yeah, it's always interesting, isn't it? So there's a bit of self-interest there, isn't it, for us following England for the first time in a long time. So yeah, we'll be hoping that they can do the job there. It's going to be difficult for them, no doubt. Some of the surfaces that they played on have been conducive to spin bowling, and probably India's strengths in their ability to play spin as well. So we wish them well. See what unfolds. It's out of our hands, but yeah, we'll be watching on with interest. And I think most people have been watching that series with some great interest in terms of the conditions that have been played on, and I suppose the short nature of the Test matches has been very interesting to watch from afar.
And just one on the schedule change. How's the camp handled all the games being moved to Wellington, and just the general feel in New Zealand?
A huge positive, really, for the games being moved. Obviously, Auckland, once it become a red zone, that would have changed our lot in terms of what would happen on return back to Australia. So we see that as a positive. Being able to avoid that hot zone, probably not a positive for the Auckland people. We feel for them, obviously, going back into lockdown, and Eden Park is a great ground to play at, and it would have been a fantastic atmosphere. So probably a loss in terms of the big crowd that we would have got there, but in terms of us not having to quarantine on the way home in the current landscape is a huge positive. And yeah, the guys are they're just taking those fixture changes in their stride. And first assignment was always going to be Wednesday here anyway. So what happens after that, is really dictated by others, and potentially what happens with the COVID situation. But yeah, at the moment, firmly focused on Wednesday. We're 2-0 down, so we've got some work to do on Wednesday. And what happens after that, we'll rebuild and go for.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Sam. Ben.
G'day, mate. Can I buy a vowel on the changes you're hinting at? Might it be one less spinner given the wicket at Sky Stadium? Can you elaborate at all?
Well, that's always a consideration, isn't it? So as I said, we'll have a look at what's happening down there in terms of the boundaries, square boundaries, what the surface looks like. And we'll factor in all those in making that decision. So we've got a couple of hypotheticals that we've sort of run last night at our strategy meeting. And as I said, I think the surface and the ground will probably make that decision for us.
And are there some players? If it's a live series or not, does that come into the equation as to whether you blood some of the fringier players of this squad through the series?
Not really. I think that, with the vision that we had at the start of the tour, we've got a squad, a deep squad in terms of 18 players here, and we'd like to at the stages expose different players to different situations, and we're still picking the best team that we think can win games for Australia. So we felt as though every player that come on this tour is a live chance at the start. So that hasn't changed in our thinking.
They're all must-win games now. Does that change how you assess performances and stuff? Like, are you keen to see how some players perform in this high-pressure situation?
I think, I suppose, from the outside, winning and losing always determines, how people perceive the performance. But if you look at the last game, we lost that game, but there was a huge amount of positives within that.
Yeah.
Some of the exposure to pressure situations, Marcus Stoinis and Daniel Sams' partnership was one of the best partnerships I've seen. And, albeit we got ourselves into a winning position there. So would that have changed people's perceptions on that performance? There's no doubt about that. But yeah, we like the fact that T20 creates high pressure moments, and you see players that have been playing at the level below. I thought Josh Philippi stood up to, the level second game. I thought that was a huge positive as well. His calmness to go inside out over cover off Mitch Stanton, which is something we've seen in the BBL for a while. It's one thing to do it at that level, but the pressure does go up in international cricket. And for him to make that leap pretty seamlessly and play the game that we know he can play at the international level definitely is a huge positive. So any exposure that anyone can get to these pressure situations against a quality team, which is New Zealand, is a huge bonus for us in where we're heading.
Are you able, just following on from that question before, do you have an update on how you're going to get home? Like, is there a new plan so that you can avoid quarantine, or is it still in the works?
Well, I think at the moment, nothing's really changed. If we had hit Auckland, there would have been significant changes, and hence that's why we've shifted from there around that. And clearly, I think level 3 has meant that you can't play cricket there anyway. So as I said, that was a bonus for us that we were able to avoid that hotspot, which then doesn't change our conditions on re-entry at this stage.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Lockie.
Thanks, Lucy. Hey, Andrew. I guess just a question on sort of the death overs bowling. The Kiwis have managed to get quite a few runs off those last overs. What do you think the key is, and what do you think has to change to kind of restrict them in those last 1 or 2 overs?
Yeah, I think, well, if you looked at the 18 and 19 were really good overs. I think I haven't got the book in front of me, but I think there might have been 4 runs and 7 runs or something like that. And then the last over clearly went for 20. So I thought Jai Richardson and Kane Richardson did an outstanding job in pegging 2 of those last 3 overs back. And then obviously Daniel Sams copped a little bit of tap in that last over. But, he's sort of 5 or 6 games into his international career bowling a death over against a quality batting lineup on a small ground. And that can happen. So we're under no illusions that can happen at any time to any bowler at the death. But that exposure, we're hoping, makes him a better player from that. But clearly we've got some work to do in terms of defending. And as I said, I think that really it's between 7 and sort of 14 to 16 overs is where New Zealand have really come hard at us. They've played our spin well at this stage. If you look at Australia's strengths over the last sort of 2 years, it's been the spin. But I mean, Ashton Agar, he's played 2 games in the last 3.5 months as well, so he's going to be better every game that he plays. And Adam Zampa at this stage hasn't got into the games as such in terms of having great impact. But let's in saying that, his quality over the last 2 years would suggest that the next game he probably will have an impact. So we're not too concerned at this stage, but it is an area that we do need to improve in if we're going to compete and beat this Kiwi side.
And just on the front end of the innings, I guess in the first T20, you guys sort of used Zamps in the power play, and the second one you used Ashton. What's the thinking behind that, and what sort of influences the decision on which one to choose for those first 6 overs?
Yeah, or depending on the batter at the crease, that's first and foremost. We feel like Zamps has got a key matchup in that first 6 overs if we happen to get an early wicket. So that's why we went to him. We went to both of them in the last game where we bowled 3 overs of spin in the power play, 3 for 34 in the first power play and 1 for 45 on a small ground in the second power play. We feel as though the way that we've structured up the power play so far has been effective. And that's not saying that the next game will lend itself to exactly the same bowling distribution within the power play, but we feel as though our homework that we've done and how we've been able to get through those first 6 overs where New Zealand can be quite damaging has been a positive. But as I said, we probably haven't got those middle overs right at this stage, and that may be a reason for us to reinforce that area or make some changes that potentially strengthen that area with both bat and ball.
Cheers. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Lockie. We don't have a heap of time, guys, so we're going to go last 3. We'll start with you, Emma. Emma Olsen, are you there? We'll come back. Sam.
So sorry, I completely forgot to unmute myself. It's Emma here from News Talk ZB in NZ. Andrew, last night News Hub reported it was the Aussies who didn't want to travel around the country for games. Can you speak on this?
Not really. I mean, I can speak on it. I don't know whether it was the Aussies that wanted. I think it was more in the best interest of avoiding those hot zones for us to return home. I think that's a given in the current landscape, that I think any touring sides that were exposed to hot zones or red zones that then would have to go home would have to quarantine. So I think in the landscape that we're working in touring, I think that the decision's made in the best interest of both teams. And I'm sure that New Zealand had that exact same situation when they were in Australia in March, where they had a deadline to get to, and the Australian cricket team allowed that to happen and to get home to beat that quarantine. So I think that there's a bit of give and take in the landscape that we are in around that, and we're thankful that New Zealand cricket have rescheduled so we can avoid those hot zones, and therefore we can get back without quarantine. So we're much appreciative of the way that they've gone about it. I think it's more working together as a collaborative rather than saying that it's one side or the other.
What sort of impacts do you think there is from playing at the same stadium 3 times in a row?
I think positive, because you don't have to travel in between games, so it allows you a little bit more structure and less movement between games. Depending on the surfaces might slow down across the 3 games. So therefore, if you get to the back end, it might be that there's a bat first bias in probably game 3, depending on whether you're playing the same wicket all 3 times. But any time that you play 3 games on the one surface in a row, players will get pretty familiar with it. So you shouldn't see too many things happen that you don't expect to happen, if that makes sense. So there will be a little bit more certainty around what's happening going into games 2 and 3.
Thanks, Emma. We'll just jump to Sam. Sorry, guys, don't have a heap of time left. Sam, over to you.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Andrew. I'll be quick. Look, just on the middle over 7 to 16, is the emphasis more on matching New Zealand's hitting, or is it with when you guys are batting, or is it more restricting them when they're doing their damage?
I think the one thing we can control is probably the bowling, isn't it? So I think that we'd probably look at how we use our bowling through that phase of the game, and there's no doubt, we're clearly trying to, as a batting unit, be aggressive through that period of time anyway. So it's more probably how we defend the New Zealand batters and what matchups we use through that period of time would be, I'd say, where we'd probably get the most improvement in our performance.
And just on flying home, the no quarantine, just on a personal, my young family, I mean, what is that a huge relief for you? Are you pretty happy to find out that you won't have to do another 14 days?
I think it's a positive for anyone. I think on the back of what cricketers have done over a period of time, and people in other walks of life as well, I think, it's a positive any time that you can avoid 14 days of hotel quarantine. I wouldn't wish it upon too many people, to be perfectly honest. And
just while I've got you, I think it's the first time we've spoken to you since. Can you just talk us through the Rajasthan Royals decision to step away on the eve of the season? Can you just talk us through what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, they clearly had a shift in the leadership with Kumar Sangakkara and Sanju Samson coming in. So, it was just decided mutually that we'd move in separate directions. So, that's where it landed, pretty simply.
Will there be another franchise which you can step into, or do you think you'll have April off?
I think I'm looking forward to April and May off, Be nice to have a little bit of a break.
Thanks so much. Good luck tomorrow.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Sam. Andrew Rue, we'll wrap up with you.
Good day, Andrew. Just want to ask you about, over all the first 2 games, as to have there been any performances from players who have, I suppose, gone up the pecking order in terms of getting into that final World Cup squad? And with a player like Daniel Sams, is he, do you judge him more on his batting the other day? You seem to be quite impressed with, or I suppose his bowling is the sort of the all-round package that you want from him, I think, batting at 7.
Yeah, I think you start with Daniel Sams. It's probably more the bowling when you're sort of batting at that sort of 8 position, and looking to lock away the 4 overs. It's probably the bowling element. The batting was no doubt a huge bonus, and it's not too often you see a number 8 batter have an impact like that on a game and almost turn it literally on its head. I think at one stage there he's 30 off 8 deliveries, which was some incredible hitting. So he's giving us a look at a different player as well. Could he, be a player that potentially turns into more of that sort of batting all-rounder, or is it going to be the bowling all-rounder? So we're yet to sort of determine that with Daniel. He's only new into the team, so where he fits and how we sort of operate around him. But I thought Marcus Stoinis number 5. I think that's a huge step forward. And Jai Richardson, also his return, I think he's, with the quality he's delivering at the moment, he's going to make a real case, I think, for a starting 11 spot, in amongst the team come the World Cup time. But all the other information at the moment, Josh Philippi, obviously new information, positive, making that step up. But Adam Zampa and Ashton Agar are still going to be, the guys that we turn to in the spin department. And whilst they haven't had the impact on this series so far, we know that long term that they're going to have the impact that we expected them going into a World Cup. So there's been some snippets of new information, but clearly, we're probably getting similar information that we knew besides those ones I've sort of just mentioned. But as I said, if we expose different players through the next 3 games, there's no doubt we'll require more information on where the rest of the players are at as well, which we're looking forward to and we're excited about leading into a World Cup.
And just on players like Steve Smith and Josh Hazelwood, who are, I suppose, test specialists, you'd expect them to be sort of in the mix in the T20 side. I mean, are they do you see them as integral part of your T20 World Cup plans as well, given they're also highly important to the Ashes?
Yeah, I think anytime you've got a World Cup on the eve of an Ashes, and we've been through this before with the 50 over World Cup into the Ashes, it's going to create some management conversations around how to best prepare players for Test cricket, albeit with a T20 World Cup prior to it. I think that in the current landscape, a lot of teams are pretty well versed in doing that. So I'd say that if they're in the best T20 side or in that best T20 squad, that they'll be there. And then we'll just have to work out ways of preparing those guys who potentially aren't playing in the 11 at the time. And we're probably expecting to have extended squads, during this COVID period as well. So we could end up having sort of 18, 19, 20 players in a squad as opposed to what has become accustomed with a 15-man squad. So I think the squads will be a little bit deeper. So therefore, you might have some options to train guys in India at the time to get ready for the Ashes as well. So as I said, teams are pretty good at that and managing that, and something that's been going on for quite a period of time. So I don't think that you'd exclude anyone from any conversation based upon a prior tour being there before the Ashes.
Cool. No worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Sorry, guys, we're going to have to wrap it up there. But thanks for joining us and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you.
Cool.